Grand Tourers are some of the best all-round cars in the world. They can go fast, they can do long distances, and they can look really good doing it. So today I'm going to talk about 5 in particular that depreciated down to under £75,000. They started off very expensive and they are still kind of expensive, but they are a lot less expensive, if that makes any sense. If you want to see another video on exotic Grand Tourers, then click the like button and subscribe as well if you're new, and let's get straight into it. An age-old design for the Porsche 911s has been the Targa, with the first ever one coming all the way back in September 1965 at the International Motor Show in Frankfurt. It's not a typical convertible and it's not a coupe. Instead, it was something brand new with a fixed roll bar similar to what you would find in a race car, but reimagined to make it more luxurious and usable for a grand touring purpose rather than a track purpose. That Targa roof has lasted across multiple 911 generations and other Porsches too, like the 914 and the Carrera GT, but today we're focusing on this, the 991 Targa 4S, or the previous generation's iteration. It actually came with 2 engine options depending on whether you got the 991.1 or the 0.2. The 0.1 is more typically Porsche, so let's start with that, a 3.8 litre flat 6, which puts out 394 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.5 seconds, whereas the 0.2 got a 3 litre twin turbocharged flat 6 instead, which is more powerful, so it depends on whether you prefer natural aspiration or turbocharging. There were some other differences between the two cars as well, most notably the styling around the bumpers, and they changed the lights all around as well. It actually also marked the first time the base level 911s have ever come turbocharged, with that typically being reserved for the turbo examples or similar. Of course, the new 992 generation pretty much exclusively comes turbocharged unless you're getting a GT or touring product. For that reason then, for some, the 991.1 might be the last true taste of an older Porsche format, but it's all horses for courses. One thing Porsche are very good at making is 911s. Their mindset of evolution rather than revolution means that they make iterative changes over an extended period of time and simply perfect the formula, so I wouldn't worry too much about buying a 0.2 and missing out on a naturally aspirated 0.1 because you'll be benefiting from another step up in the 911 evolution across the board. These run you around 60k at the bottom end, and at the 75k mark you'll get a low mileage 0.1 or a similarly low early 0.2. Clogged radiators and water pump failures were not common but definitely known issues, and maintenance does cost Porsche money, so do be aware of that. Now we're onto the Aston Martin DBS, a car that was named after their stunning 1967-72 Grand Tourer Coupe and replaced the Vanquish S as the flagship Aston before being replaced itself by the second gen Vanquish in 2012. So it didn't actually last very long then, given it arrived in 2007 and disappeared in 2012, but that has helped it to remain pretty strong on price, given today you'll still find these starting at around £59,000, while our 75k limit will get you a 2011 example with 40,000 miles on it. It came as both a coupe and convertible Volante, and came manual as standard, with the automatic box being an option at extra cost, which to me is incredibly cool, manually shifting a V12 engined car. Speaking of that engine, it's a 5.9 litre V12 to be exact, which puts out 510 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.2 seconds, which isn't crazy quick, but it's plenty enough for a Grand Tourer, particularly of its age, and that V12 isn't put under too much strain either, which means that other than a few teething issues on the earlier cars, mechanically these have been genuinely very solid. It always surprises people when I say that about Astons, but the DBS genuinely hasn't caused its owners anywhere near the financial trauma of many other exotic cars, though of course if you're unlucky enough to have a failure, repair costs can be pretty eye-watering. Looking on the bright side though, one thing that has helped to keep this car's value higher is its use in the James Bond film Casino Royale. It even got a record for its appearance, becoming the most times a car has flipped in an on-screen film crash, as in one scene it rolled through 7 complete rotations before Bond gets captured and smacked in the balls a few times by the bad guy. Genuinely, from this list, if you want a car that has the looks to take on Monaco, the handling to take on the Alps, the space to fit a bit of luggage for the journey in between, and the engine note to bring you to tears every time you press the throttle, this is the car to go for. It's always a good day when you can get a Ferrari onto one of these lists, and even though the California was always considered as the cheap entry-level Ferrari that people had to buy in order to buy the Ferraris they actually wanted, as someone who's actually driven one, I can say with chest that they are far more than that. They are great cars to drive that give you a proper Ferrari experience for a fraction of the price of its more aggressive stablemates. It kinda had to do that too, as it was effectively kicking off a new market segment for Ferrari, given it didn't really have a predecessor. Ferrari aren't really an entry-level kind of brand. It comes with a 4.3 litre V8 engine which puts out 483 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 3.7 seconds, so despite that entry-level status it's certainly no slouch, and that engine is shared with a bunch of other Ferraris too, including the F430 and 458, both of which I've also driven, and it sounds great in all of them. The California actually provided a few more firsts for Ferrari, including being the first front-engined V8 for them and the first with a hardtop folding convertible roof, amongst other things. What I liked most about it when I drove one was the interior. It's a truly lovely place to be and a perfect car for a Grand Tour. Alongside the Aston, this is probably one of the best fits as an exotic Grand Tour that will offer you excellent comfort for long journeys while also turning heads everywhere. But what surprised me the most about this car was how well it handled. I took it out on track and it was so well balanced, and despite the engine being up front, it wants to kick the back out, and with quite a manageable amount of power, it's really fun to drive. To get into one of these, you'll need to spend around £51,000 at the bottom end, making it the cheapest car on the list, and £75,000 will get you a 2011 model with 15k on it, and might even get you into the newer California T. The main two problems I could find on forums were to do with the folding roof and the transmission, and it's typically sensor related problems rather than mechanical. It's a Ferrari though, so you will have Ferrari maintenance costs. So I hope you guys are enjoying this video. If you are, then do hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new, and let me know in the comments down below, what is the best ever Grand Tourer? I'm talking any price range, I don't care. What is the best one ever? Let me know in the comments down below. Matching the California on pace, but beating it in terms of power is this, the Mercedes AMG GTS, which is the slight upgrade over the standard AMG GT. That upgrade included slightly more power, a new LSD, multiple driving modes, adaptive suspension, an uprated battery, and a new performance exhaust as well, plus of course the customary different alloys and some additional styling flavour. It arrived as only the second ever car developed entirely in-house by Mercedes AMG following the SLS, and it was actually an incredibly diverse car in terms of its applications across its many different specs, with the GT and GTS being sporty Grand Tourers, the GTC being somewhere between Grand Tourer and supercar vibes, the GTR and GTR Pro being track-focused cars, and of course actual race cars in the GT3 and GT4 racing variants. The design isn't a million miles away from the SLS that I mentioned, and though I do think that the GTS has a super sleek, attractive design for a Grand Tourer, I will say that the GTC absolutely blows it out of the water in the looks department. Honestly, the GTC is one of my personal favourite looking modern Mercedes. The GTS comes with a 4-litre twin turbocharged V8 which puts out 502 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 3.7 seconds, not bad at all. Despite it being a purpose-built GT car, it does still put out some great performance in tight corners, given that its structure is 93% aluminium to save weight. The interior is also a nice place to be, having been in one. It's got quite an aggressive seating position, more supercar-esque, but it's still comfort focused. You wouldn't struggle to do a long journey in one from my experience. It also had a facelift in 2017 which brought about the GTC that I mentioned, and it also gave the car a tad more power too. I think the facelift is probably the better looking car as well, with the new grills in particular looking much more modern. They'll run you around £53,000 at the bottom end, and for 75k you'll be looking at a facelifted 2019 model with around 7,000 miles on it, so pretty low. The main problems with these early doors were electrical, but mostly resolved under warranty. In general though, very positive from a reliability perspective. Taking the top spot in this video is not just the fastest, but probably the most exotic looking car on the list. It's the McLaren 570 GT, a stunner of a sports car which in GT spec is supposed to be a bit more comfortable and dailyable than your average McLaren, but maybe not on quite the same level as the actual McLaren GT. Being a McLaren, it has depreciated a ton, but remains the most expensive car on our list, starting around our 75k limit, and for that kind of money you'll be getting yourself a 2017 model with 30k on it. This is effectively the 570S with a comfort pack attached, and one of the best things about McLarens is that they genuinely are bespoke. I can't really talk through all of the spec and interior options because McLaren make a great point of offering the first owners an amazing level of specability. Owners and reviewers alike mention how good an all-rounder this car is, used as a daily driver commuting car as well as the track day weapon, and in terms of looks you won't find anything as aggressive looking with a GT purpose attached. It comes with that typical McLaren 3.8 litre twin turbocharged V8 which puts out 562 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 3.3 seconds, which is crazy performance if people genuinely treat this as their daily car. I think from the list it's probably the least likely one to take on a proper Grand Tour, given it's still pretty aggressive to drive and sit in. There's only so much a bit of leather and softer suspension can do to a car that's supposed to be thrashed on track. From a reliability point of view, other than some electrical gremlins and some genuine lemons in the early cars, these have been pretty good. Instead it was the servicing that many owners complained about in the early days, though I have heard McLaren are doing a better job these days. On forums you'll find many owners' day daily driving them, taking them to track days and putting tens of thousands of comfortable miles on them, but you'll also find some owners that have spent as much time driving them as they have spent with the car back at McLaren being sorted out for some kind of problem. So there you have it, 5 very exotic Grand Tours you can buy for less than £75,000. Now if you want to see some other cars you can get at that same price range, then do click up here, subscribe as well down here. Massive thanks to you guys for watching and the patrons as well for their support. I'll see you in the next one.